James Comey, indicted. Felony charges. Yeah, you heard that right. The man who once led the FBI, the same James Comey who tangled with Hillary Clinton's emails, who stood at the center of the Russia investigation, who was fired by Donald Trump on live television, is now staring down a federal indictment. 2 felony counts, one for making false statements to Congress, another for obstructing a congressional proceeding. The courtroom isn't the only battlefield. This is about power, revenge, and the weaponization of American justice at the highest levels. And here's the kicker. If this case actually goes forward, it could rip open the very fabric of political accountability in Washington. Let's rewind. September 30th, 2020, a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. James Comey sat in the hot seat, grilled for hours over the FBI's handling of the Russia probe, FISA warrants, and those now famous Steele dossier leads. Republicans hammered him. Democrats shielded him. Comey, calm but clipped, insisted he hadn't misled Congress. His words were sworn testimony. Fast forward 4 years. After Trump returned to office, the Justice Department didn't just re-examine those transcripts, they built a case. A grand jury now claims Comey lied on oath, lied to Congress, and even obstructed the very hearing he sat in. It's rare, almost unheard of for a former FBI director to face criminal charges. And yet, here we are. Trump's fingerprints are all over this. For months, he demanded prosecutions of his political enemies. He tweeted it, shouted it at rallies, leaned on his Justice Department officials, and now one of his biggest targets, the man who launched the Russia investigation against him, is in federal crosshairs. So what exactly triggered the indictment? According to the DOJ's 2-page filing, Comey misrepresented his knowledge of certain surveillance applications, specifically the FISA warrants tied to Trump's campaign aides. In plain terms, prosecutors allege he knew the FBI botched its paperwork but denied it under oath. The second charge? Obstruction. The indictment claims he deliberately withheld documents from senators during that 2020 hearing, slowing down their ability to investigate.
The moment news broke, Trump pounced. On Truth Social, he blasted, "I told you, crooked Comey finally caught. Justice is served. Next up, the rest of the deep state liars." At a rally in Michigan, he called it a historic victory for honest Americans and promised more prosecutions to come. His supporters roared. Meanwhile, legal experts scrambled. Some called the charges thin, almost laughably flimsy. Others warned they could backfire, because if the DOJ can indict Comey for testimony 4 years old, what stops Congress from turning every hostile witness into a potential felon? The media frenzy was immediate. CNN called it a political earthquake. Fox News branded it a long overdue reckoning. MSNBC called it the most brazen weaponization of justice in modern history. Social media exploded. Hashtag Comey indicted trended within minutes. Inside the Capitol, the mood turned venomous. Democrats accused Trump of running a dictatorship. Republicans called it accountability. The split wasn't just party lines. Even some conservatives whispered that the case looked shaky. One GOP senator told Politico anonymously, "We all wanted payback, but this feels dangerous." Now, let's break down what this really means. First, the legal. Comey faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted. That's not nothing. Even if he beats the charges, the trial itself will be brutal. Testimony, documents, media leaks. Every move he made as FBI director could be dragged back into the spotlight. For Trump, that's the prize. Months of headlines linking Comey to lies and obstruction. Second, the political. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Trump's enemies list is long. Adam Schiff, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe. Indicting Comey could be the opening shot in a much wider purge. Already, Trump allies in the House are demanding new investigations. One even floated charging former CIA officials who signed letters questioning the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Third, the precedent. Prosecuting a former FBI director because a president demanded it. That's uncharted territory. Never happened before. Legal scholars warn it turns Congress into a courtroom where every sworn statement risks a jail sentence if the ruling party doesn't like the answer. Think about that. Tomorrow, it could be a Democratic-controlled DOJ charging Trump's allies for their testimony. Once the line is crossed, it's hard to walk back. And the fallout doesn't stop at Washington. Ordinary Americans are asking, if the FBI director can be dragged into court, who's safe? Some see justice, others see a purge. The narrative divides the country deeper. The Independent called it the ultimate backfire risk, because if the trial collapses, Comey walks free and Trump looks like he staged a witch hunt. But if the trial succeeds, a former FBI director becomes a convicted felon on Trump's watch. Either way, the damage is done. And here's where it gets darker. Multiple outlets report the grand jury actually rejected one of the charges DOJ wanted, a second false statement count. They said no. That's unusual. It signals division even inside the grand jury, which means Comey's defense attorneys will hammer the flimsy case argument. Still, the optics are explosive. Trump demanded justice, his DOJ delivered, and James Comey, once the nation's top cop, is now branded an accused criminal. But here's the part nobody's talking about. What happens if this actually goes forward? What if James Comey, the man who defined Trump's enemies list, is marched into a courtroom and the trial spirals out of control? So let's imagine that courtroom. A federal jury, cameras circling, James Comey, the man who once ran the FBI, standing trial like any other defendant. That image alone could rewrite history. But here's the problem. The indictment itself is paper thin, just 2 pages. Legal experts have called it sparse, even dangerous. They argue it doesn't spell out what exactly Comey lied about or how withholding documents rose to obstruction. That vagueness may not hold up under cross-examination. And that's where things get tricky. If the case fails, Trump risks proving his critics right, that this is all political theater, a vendetta disguised as justice. If the case succeeds, he scores a victory so unprecedented, it could open the door to prosecuting virtually anyone who ever stood against him. Think about the parallels. Richard Nixon, forced from office after Watergate. Bill Clinton, impeached for lying under oath. Both scandals hinged on the question of truth under oath, but neither man faced felony criminal charges after leaving power. The Justice Department historically pulled back. Why? To preserve institutional legitimacy, to avoid looking like a weapon. Trump is breaking that tradition. His Justice Department is not holding back, and the consequences are seismic. For Trump, this isn't just about James Comey. It's about revenge. For years, he branded Comey as corrupt, dishonest, the man who tried to bring him down with the Russia probe. Indicting Comey is payback, plain and simple. But Democrats see it differently. They see survival. They know if Trump can put Comey in the dock, he can do the same to them. Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, anyone who ever crossed him could be next. That's why Democratic leaders are already framing this as the death of DOJ independence. And the fight isn't confined to Washington. Across America, voters are picking sides. Some see the Comey trial as proof the system finally works. Others see it as proof the system is collapsing. The divide deepens. Even inside the GOP, cracks are showing. A few Republican senators admit privately they're nervous. One told reporters off the record, "We wanted accountability, but we didn't want to set fire to the whole system." Still, most stay silent, fearing Trump's wrath.
Here's why this case matters far beyond James Comey. If Trump succeeds in prosecuting a former FBI director for testimony, it sets a precedent. Future presidents, Democrat or Republican, could weaponize the DOJ the same way. Every hostile witness in Congress could face felony charges. Every oversight hearing could become a legal trap.
It's a slippery slope. Congressional oversight is supposed to keep the executive branch honest. If witnesses fear jail time for answering questions, oversight collapses. That's why some scholars are comparing this to the McCarthy era, when accusations alone were enough to destroy careers. Back then, it was communism. Today, it's false statements. Different weapon, same effect. So what happens next? Let's map out the possibilities. Scenario 1. The trial collapses. Comey's lawyers attack the indictment as vague and flimsy. The judge agrees, tossing out charges or narrowing them until nothing remains. In this outcome, Trump looks reckless, his enemies are emboldened, and Comey walks away with a new label, not felon, but political martyr. Scenario 2. The trial succeeds. Against the odds, prosecutors convince a jury that Comey lied under oath and obstructed Congress. He's convicted, sentenced. Even if the punishment is modest, say probation or a short sentence, the political impact is enormous. Trump proves he can jail his enemies. Future presidents may be tempted to follow suit. America crosses a line it may never uncross. Scenario 3. The trial stalls. Delays pile up, appeals drag on. The case becomes a never-ending saga dominating headlines through 2026. Neither victory nor defeat, but perpetual chaos. For Trump, that might be enough. Keeping Comey in legal limbo serves his narrative. The swamp is finally paying. Each scenario carries risk. Each reshapes American politics. And let's not forget the ordinary citizen, the person watching gas prices climb, rent rise, jobs shift overseas. They're asking, why is Washington obsessed with political vendettas while my life gets harder?
This is where the real danger lies. The more politics looks like a gladiator fight, the more ordinary Americans lose faith in government itself. They see leaders weaponizing justice against each other while ignoring the issues that hit their wallets. That collapse of trust, that's the silent crisis behind this trial. So here we are, James Comey, indicted, defiant, facing years in prison if convicted. Donald Trump, triumphant, declaring victory over his old nemesis. The Department of Justice caught in the crossfire, its independence questioned like never before. But the real question isn't whether Comey walks free or goes to prison. It's what happens to America if justice itself becomes just another political weapon. Is this accountability, or is it theater? Is this justice, or is it revenge? Because here's the truth. If the trial backfires, Trump could end up weaker. But if it succeeds, America may never look at its justice system the same way again. So what do you think? Has Comey finally been exposed, or is this the biggest political backfire in modern history? Like, share, subscribe, because trust me, this story is just beginning.